My first watch of this movie was last week. I've watched it like a few times before we're recording this, but you just mentioned a little bit earlier that you had seen this when you were a teenager, when you were like maybe the ages or not very far from the ages of the characters in the film. So it's just really interesting. I think I don't necessarily have a question for you, but just for everyone out there listening, Adam watched this movie for the first time when he was a kid. This was like, over 15 years ago. And I watched this movie for the first time like a couple weeks ago. So I think our perspectives might be a little bit different as to like the personal aspects of the movie and how because when you watch a movie when you're much younger, I feel it sort of bakes into you and it keeps fermenting inside your head, and you eventually start to live more, right? You experience more. And when that happens, you watch the movie again and you think about the movie, and then the next thing happens and you watch the movie again and you think about the movie, and the movie doesn't change, but you do. And then your perspective on it does change. So I guess maybe I will ask you real quick, has your perspective on the movie changed at all since you first watched it? Because I don't have that window to examine, but you certainly do. So briefly tell us about that before we get into the weeds of meaning here.
I am a little embarrassed to say that the character of JD talked to me a lot when I was 17 years old.
Don't be embarrassed. I think that's just being 17, right?
But in a weird way of like, there are still elements of your personality that do ring true when you're 33 as well as you were 17. So sure. Watching it now, I'm sitting there going, I know you're full of shit. I know you're 1,000% full of shit, but you make a compelling argument. Please stop making a compelling argument. You're making me question a lot of stuff about myself right now. But it's weird because I'm also somebody who I hate people who be up on youth culture. I just do. I mean, for the simple reason of it's low-hanging fruit, and when your life is literally a Cronenberg movie, when you're going through puberty, that's punching down for me. That is absolutely punching down.
That is such a good way to put puberty. It's so nerdy, but it's so dead on. Yeah. Please continue.
But so I'm sure, when I was 17, but yeah, I did see the world the way that JD saw it and the way that Veronica saw it, where, everything's so superficial, man. And, all these clicks, it's a lot like how society functions, man. And now I'm like, all right, there's an element of truth to that in an odd sort of way. Like high school prepares us for like, I guess, certain social settings more than anything else. But again, when you're 17 years old, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
You may have some idea. You may know that maybe things aren't. You learn to question authority more when you're of that age, and you should question authority more when you're that age.
The only problem is, no, keep going.
Is I feel like we carry that forward into life more, where you feel like you question everything just out of habit, as opposed to kind of going through life and then just having a good bullshit detector. So when you're being lied to, all right, I know I'm being lied to, as opposed to assuming I'm being lied to all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's an issue.
That's so true. And for if there are any younger or teenage aged listeners out there that are hearing that, I while I do agree with that, I think that definitely seems very scary. You know, if you were to tell that to a teenager or a younger person now, like, oh, eventually you're going to have to develop your own bullshit detector, and you're going to be able to, you're going to have to make all these decisions, and you're going to have to know what's real and what's not, and what's bullshit, and you're going to have to act, and you're going to have to inspire and influence. And I think that is very overwhelming to hear. It's even overwhelming for me to hear now, and I am more adult in doing that kind of stuff. But as right as you are, I would just like to assure any younger listeners here, or anyone who's young of soul, but our age or older, that it's just something that I think comes naturally. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it being your active job. Like, oh, this is my duty to make sure that there is no bullshit. I have to screen here, and I'm going to apply that skill right now. Boom! You can't do that. So it's just something that you acquire when you go through life, right?
It does come naturally, but it's also. I'm trying to pick my words very carefully right now.
Always.
You should always speak truth to power when it's the most difficult to do so. And it is very difficult to do so sometimes.
Right.
But by that same token, don't always assume that people in power are there to just fuck you over constantly.
Right.
Because in actuality, like, this is going to sound even more morbid to a degree, like, live your life. Nobody's out to get you specifically. They're not. Because in the grand scheme of everything, we're all part of this great big tapestry, and not one single thread kind of stands out amongst all the other threads to get pulled on just because.
Yeah, that's good advice. And tune in for the next episode of Adam Secofico Informs You About What to Do in Adult Life.
Yeah,
Vital information with
By
Adam
the way,
Secofico.
I should be subscribed to that because I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing most of the time either. So
yeah, exactly, right? We always help other people the way we would have helped ourselves earlier on. Hindsight's 2020, ain't it, pal?
Jesus.